da 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 da. That is the theme from Superman, which has nothing to do with our show today. But I felt I would do that because, damn it, Vince, it's my show and I can do what I want.
John Williams. Why wouldn't we at least have some reference to him in every show?
The king, right? John Williams, the man, the myth behind Jurassic Park, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all of them, all of the Indiana Jones movies, well, they've remixed a few of it, but the original Jurassic Park guy and its sequels that they've taken what John Williams did and they've remixed and done different versions.
They even used a John Williams score in Superman Returns.
You know what? What they should have used was Billy D. Williams. I don't know why. Because that's another Williams, Vince. So I just,
Would he actually be making the music, or would he just sort of be like slowly, smoothly humming the theme song?
He would talk like this. Colt 45. That's my Billy. That's my William D. Williams. Martin, on an episode of Martin, the greatest show ever from the 90s, he had Billy D. Williams on, and Martin asked him when they're doing the whole radio show segment, he said, if you didn't use Billy, he said, would your name be William D. Williams? And he kind of laughed, and I was just like, oh, yep, he's right. Billy short for William. It really is. All right, folks, we're getting distracted. You know where you've got, you know where you are, you know you have made it to the greatest show on earth, the show with a contemporary sense of humor. We got a hell of a show for you guys today. But before we get into that, let's get into this. Me, I am the water drinking. Yeah. Water drinking, because you got to hydrate yourself. Hold on. I am the chapstick using. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. I am the kid and play with the Karate Kid reference. Isn't that a pop culture clash right there? You see that shit, Vince?
I think he's raised it up a little higher just so we can see all of it.
There we go. There we go. See that? There you
also
go.
Covers your face a little bit, so it's a double victory.
I am the man. I am the master. I am the ruler of the world. As said by Psycho Sid back in the 90s, when he was over like hotcakes, it was amazing. I am the jet flying. Not kiss stealing, because that's rapey as all shit. I am though the jet flying, limousine ride, I am the jabroni beating, pie eating, as said by The Rock. Man with the master plan. I'm a rapper, I'm an actor, and I don't give a damn. I go by the name of Laren Maxstar Moore.
And I am the most electrifying man in all of pop culture entertainment, Vince Eustace.
And guys, you know where you've reached. You know where you are. You are on the season opener, the season premiere of season 3. We made it to season 3 of episode 1 of Popcorn
and Booze. I almost held up. Whenever I do 3, I usually do this like the Dudley Boys.
John Cena.
John Cena, but now this is like a white supremacy thing. So I'm trying to train myself to go back to 3.
Yeah, we can't have that. I didn't even. Wow, boy, you white people can't do nothing right. You have ruined everything. We can't do shit now. Wow. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even know that. Thank you for telling me that. That's crazy.
I mean, obviously, every time you do this, it's not like if I'm like, hey, that's okay, or something like that, or I did like if I'm like, oh, we have like 3 seconds before the next segment, like people could like try and flip it, but it's not really that thing. But if you see like Stephen Miller in a picture being like with Proud Boys being like, hey, and they're all doing that, then chances are that's what they're sort of signaling.
What about Reggie Miller? What about the Steve Miller Band?
I think Reggie Miller is okay because it'll hit the 3 and then do that. Carmelo did the 3 to the dome whenever he had a 3-point shot. I think that's still safe. I think he can still do that.
Okay, well that works. Did I say the Steve Miller Band? Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
They have good music. Yeah, there you go. They have good music. All right, kids. Well, you guys know who you are. Popcorn and Booze, the show with the contemporary sense of humor. We talk about movies, talk about music, talk about the wrestling.
Steve Miller Band, apparently.
Steve Miller Band, Reggie Miller. We don't play that supremacist shit here. So Vince is gonna get his act together, because he don't play that shit either. So we're gonna change
on it.
We're gonna change it. I will say, Vince, this is an exciting season. You know why? Oh, you do know why. We've been talking about it for weeks.
I pretend like I don't. Like, why?
Like Scooby-Doo there. We have got some excellent additions this season. By additions, I mean we've employed some people, some new faces you're gonna see. The first being a very lovely lady who I met. She's got a great personality. We're gonna be starting a segment with her called Val Talk, which is a girl talk segment. And her name is Valerie Redmond. Would you like to chime in, sir? You met her.
Yeah, she seems great. Seems very lovely. Excited to have a different perspective on the show, namely a woman, because we've talked about this as progressive and as open as we try to be towards women's issues. We can only really talk about it from an outside perspective. So I think it'd be great to actually get a legitimate female perspective on the show.
We're excited. We're going to be starting Val Talk. That'll be episode 2, as a matter of fact. Vince, episode 2.
Yes.
Of this season. Now that that's out the way, we'll talk more about her later. Let's also get into something that is very near and dear to us, hip hop. And before I say this, because I actually haven't said this in a while, and because we haven't really done a hip hop segment in a minute, I will say, first of all, before we get into this, shout out to the two men that made it possible for the man that we are about to talk about in this episode. The people that have made it possible for me to come after the man that we're about to talk about in this episode, who inspired me. The men, the myth, the legends, DJ Hollywood and DJ Kool Herc. And we agreed it's not, is it Hercules? Is it short for Hercules?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. That makes sense because he is a powerhouse like Hercules was.
I am Hercules.
So shout out to those two men that made it possible for one of the greatest rappers. He is in my top 5, and it's not because he passed away. He has always been in my top 5. He's always been my favorite. This man changed my life. He's changed a lot of people's lives when it came to hip hop. I had a total different perspective of hip hop after listening to this man when I was a young kid. I was a teenager when this man came out. Oh man, and because life is the way it is sometimes, we have lost this man, unfortunately. He is no longer with us. And I know we're probably a couple weeks off. And by the time we release this episode, it might be even a little bit longer. But we would be remiss to not talk about the life, the legacy, the man, the myth, the late, great DMX, aka Dark Man X. Throw your X's up. Throw your X's up, Vince, for the man. Yeah. DMX, rest in peace. And that's what this episode is dedicated to. And I'm going to kick it to my man, Vince, because he's got some stuff to say about this man. And he's going to kick this segment off about this great legend.
So yeah, just reading up on DMX, I've heard his story before, but I had never really delved too deep into it. And I'm sure it's no surprise to you. He had a really, I think, like a super rough going at it before he got into music. Yeah, even after he got into music, in a way, I want to say this. I'm very upset that he's passed, no longer with us. But
yeah,
he was a Christian. He was a religious man. I don't know what you're like. I try to be a religious person when I can.
I try. I was raised Christian, so
I just after reading like his upbringing and even after his success, just a lot of the struggles that he had to go through in terms of addiction. Yeah. I'm really hoping that he has ascended into heaven and is free of all that and is in paradise and just free from all the pain and suffering that he dealt with, because it started very early on. He was born to both his parents were teenagers at the time.
Oh wow.
His dad was basically out of the picture his entire life. Let's see, he had bronchial asthma as a child, so he had to be taken to the emergency room almost nightly due to him being unable to breathe. He was abused by his mother and various boyfriends. He was subjected to drugs and alcohol at an extremely early age. So when you look at someone who has dealt with addiction all their life, you look back on it and you're like, man, like it's not your fault. Like his aunt got him drunk on vodka when he was only 7, and then his mentor, his rat mentor, but also his literal partner in crime, was his name, Reddy Ron. After they did a robbery together, and Reddy Ron like, hey, it's my birthday. Do you want to smoke a joint? And DMX was like, sure. And he smoked it, and he was like, I never felt that way before. It was crazy. Found out later that Reddy Ron had laced it with crack.
Oh,
and so he was 14, like when he first had crack. And DMX, like when he told that story, like later on, he would get visibly emotional. He'd be like, why would you do that? Like, I was a child. Like why would you do, like, I looked up to you. Like, why would you do that to me? And he was in and out of different schools for just acting out, like being violent. I think he tried to stab another child with a pencil when he was a kid. He ended up getting sent up to this school home, like a home for wayward children, that his mom tricked him, and he took that as a betrayal because she was like, oh, we're just going to go visit it. And then when he got there, she was like, oh, no, you're actually signed up. You're on your own. And he tried to burn down the school, and apparently almost nearly killed his co-conspirator as well. He would run away from home in his teenage years because he just wanted to escape the abuse of his mother. And that's actually where he got his connection to dogs, is he would befriend stray dogs on the street and find like a kinship with them, that they were kind of like all wandering and unwanted. And that's where his love of animals, especially dogs, came from. Let me double back to this, because it says on the Wikipedia page, and this is a point of contention between you and me. It says that, I'm quoting exactly what it says from the page. Earl Simmons was born on December 18th, 1970, with various accounts giving his birthplace as either Baltimore, Maryland, or Mount Vernon, New York. So we don't know. Like, we don't know for sure.
I know. Yeah,
I do.
Know. Yeah, come on now.
You don't know.
He's born in New York.
They don't know that.
Listen, they only do that because he started claiming Baltimore. So then now they have to make it ambiguous. We all know where the dog is from. We all know. He's from York.
Why did he then have the input on BET during that cipher to be like Baltimore, Maryland? He could have been like,
because he had some ties there. He spent a lot of time there, and he wanted to show Baltimore love.
That's very nice.
But I've never, ever, I know it's on Wikipedia, so I'm not trying to completely contradict Wikipedia, but I've never, ever in an interview, and I've watched plenty of interviews where they've asked DMX where he's from, and he always says Yonkers, he always says Mount Vernon. I've never, ever heard him say I was born in Baltimore. Well, ever.
I guess the world will never know for sure. It's impossible to know for sure. So
yeah, it's true. We'll never know. Definitely not now. I wanted to chime in about the whole dog thing while we were on that topic.
Sure.
I feel like too, because he was going through all that already addiction and all that hard lifestyle shit at such a young age. I almost feel like not only was there a connection he had with animals, with dogs especially, I almost feel like, and this might make sense to you, it might not make sense, I almost feel like he used that as therapy as well. I think it helped him mentally, because I've heard him say in interviews that dogs they're the most loyal thing on the planet, which is funny because women are so quick to call men dogs. And I actually heard a guy say, well, that's a shitty analogy, because dogs are the most loyal. They're the most loyalist things on the planet. So you're calling us, I know that, the connotation, I know the correlation between dogs and the way women say it, but they are loyal. So I think that was almost therapeutic for him, probably,
Yeah. Because he was alone, like you said, like he didn't really have anyone at that point.
And dogs don't argue. They're loyal. They're there for you. And I think he felt where humans were failing him, animals were doing him service. You know, dogs were doing him a justice.
So he was also, I never knew this, he was kind of a track star in middle school.
Oh, nice. I
When
cannot imagine DMX running. If there ain't police behind him, I cannot
yeah.
imagine. I cannot imagine DMX just
Well,
running.
I mean, he had actually been arrested for a few times prior to middle school. Like
That's
he'd been
probably where it started.
arrested, like at God, like maybe yeah, 7, I think.
Oh boy.
Because it said the same year that he got drunk from his aunt, he was jailed for stealing cakes from a market. So he was arrested again for trying to burn down the school when he was a little older. So maybe he had gotten some practice in, and maybe he was like jumping fences, jumping hurdles. Like maybe it all channeled into like what he was doing. But apparently, he was the second fastest on this track and field varsity team in middle school. So
Okay.
varsity middle school, that's crazy.
That's
But he
great.
had very bad grades and he didn't show up to school that often. So in order to sort of get out of poverty, because he grew up as a child like sleeping with like roaches and mice like crawling on him when he was sleeping on the floor. And so when he was a teenager, he was like, I can't really do this anymore. He turned to robbery. He became a
Yeah, yeah.
notorious stick-up kid in Yonkers.
He was very open about that in many of his interviews that he was good to pull a strap on somebody and make them come about their shit.
He
He
was
was very open
only
about that.
he said that he only went to school to rob other people. Like he would just show up to school to rob people.
So the moral of the story is it's just already just I mean in his teens his childhood was rough. His teens were rough. Now we're heading into adulthood. You know, you said he was 18 at this time,
No.
and
He was still like he was still all right, this
you
is where
said
I'm a little
14.
confused. It says he was a freshman at Yonkers middle high school. All right, so he was in high school. So he was a
He was in high
freshman.
school.
He's probably like 14, 15 years
Okay,
old.
so he's reaching the late teens, and this is setting the tone for what's to become the demon part of DMX. And then you know eventually we'll in a minute we'll get into the talented, the more positive, the musician that he became.
Yeah.
But you know there was two DMXs. There was the DMX that had demons and was full of addiction and robbing and stealing and Lord knows what else he was doing. And then there was that talented beast on that microphone. And I just kind of wish personally that he would have just stuck to that. I think you know, but a lot of this stuff wasn't his fault as well. I mean, look at it. He got laced with crack. He didn't know that set the tone for his addiction probably. So it's not entirely his fault, but it's just I just feel like when he finally did get his shit together and got lots of money, and maybe that didn't help because I think when you've got problems and you go into a situation to where your problems are now more accessible, you have the money to get to your problems, you have the means to get to your addictions. I think that is detrimental to some, and obviously it turned out to be kind of great for us as fans, but detrimental kind of to him and his life. You know.
Yeah. I mentioned Reddy Ron, his literal partner in crime, who's also a rapper and sort of took young Earl Simmons under his wing. When he was about 14, I guess he impressed him by like beatboxing for him, and so they became close after that. Uh, Says after DMX was serving time in prison for stealing a dog, that's when he started writing his own lyrics and he started performing at the local rec for like young kids. And eventually he got to a point where he was dedicating all his free time to just writing lyrics and like really focusing on being a rapper because he was bonding with some other kids
Yeah.
about like hip hop. And he started making some of his mixtapes where he rapped over instrumentals of other songs, which I've always, for me personally, I think that's, as a fan, I don't know what an A&R or like a record exec is like, but I've always thought if I'm hearing up and coming rapper, obviously I want to hear like their original stuff, but I also love hearing them rap over kind of established, slickly produced beats already, like Dr. Dre or Just Blaze or DJ
Yeah.
Premier, like songs that are already kind of popular, because then as a fan, it gives me an idea of like, oh, if they were thrust into the limelight and given a beat by these producers, how would they handle it? And I feel like that gives you sort of a good idea of it. So I love hearing all these rappers mixtapes when they're just rapping over other people's beats.
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it's been a while. It's been a while. Every time I cannot say that without quoting that song whenever I say it's been a while. Who's it? Is that Nickelback or Creed? No! I feel like that's neither.
Yeah, it's like
who is that?
It's like Tool or Stain.
Yes!
One of them Creed. I know it's not Creed.
No, it's not. It's not. One of them white boy groups, but it's embedded in my head. But no, I used to, when I first started rapping, I would do rhyming over beats, mixtapes, back when I was 18, 19 years old, dude. And it's refreshing to do it because especially if it's one of your favorite beats, you just want to kill it. Especially if you're lyrical, you want to hit them hard punchlines and everything. And that's what I grew up on. What really got me into being an MC personally was listening to mixtapes, listening to rappers rhyme over other beats, whether it was on like the Wake Up Show, Hot 97, any of them radio stations where they would just have, shout out to J. Cole, by the way. I'd be remiss not to bring up how that man, what a resurgence. But not only that, he's always been a beast. I know this is unrelated. I just have to say this before I forget. Because next episode, we probably won't be talking about this. I would be remiss to say that J. Cole, obviously one of the greatest. But if anybody has seen that clip, I know you've seen it. It's on YouTube of him on the LA Leakers with Just Incredible, who I used to know, by the way. I used to actually not kick it, but I used to know Just Incredible.
Not the wrestler, though.
That's just incredible.
No, not the wrestler. The DJ. I've never met the wrestler. Hopefully, maybe one day. I would like to meet all wrestlers if possible. But J. Cole goes on there and murders it over the 93 till infinity beat.
This is how we chill from 93 till.
He's got this dope line, and then we'll get back to X. He's got this dope line where he says, got two bitches in bed. I'm used to it. That's your best friend giving me head. Now you do it. I was just like, Cole, that line, fire.
Yeah, I feel like everyone was talking about the Cosby line, but I feel like that line isn't getting mentioned a lot. And how he ended, where he's like, I'm the hardest thing out the South since slavery.
Since slavery,
it was like, oh, god damn.
Yeah, he's beast. Killer. But no, I mean that's I like shit like that, dude. And he's rhyming over that 93 till beat, and it's just like that's what hip hop is based off of. A lot of, especially in my generation, man. So I see why DMX was his thing.
So around this time, DMX, it's about 1991. The Source actually had him in the unsigned hype column, which you and I can attest. Back in the day, the Source was the hip hop Bible, and if you were unsigned hype, it was like that was holy shit. Keeping your eye out on these people because they're great. Yeah. So that was a huge thing
and Double XL as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, 91, it was just the Source.
It was just the Source, though, yeah.
10 years later, but then 10 years later, at Double XL sort of took that over.
Yeah.
So DMX started making some noise. Columbia Records signed him to Rough House in 92.
Yeah, Rough House.
He had his debut single, Born Loser. Released his second single, Make a Move, in 94. And around that time, he was starting to sort of become compadres with Jay-Z and Ja Rule. They would later almost form a supergroup called Murder Inc., which would then become the name of Ja Rule's label. But
that would have been incredible, by the way.
Alongside Jay and Ja, Mike Geronimo, they were on the track Time to Build on Geronimo's debut album. But then right after that, that's when DMX really started making some noise. And that was around 4321. That was
did it. Yeah. Verse.
He was on Mace's 24 Hours to Live, Money, Power, Respect with the Locks. It just really felt like, and he was on these songs with legends. I mean, at the time they were just hungry up and coming rappers as well. But like you look back on it now and you're like, man, Jadakiss, LL Cool J, Method Man, Redman, like all these guys are like assassins. and obviously you could argue that DMX had the best verse. I think that's up for debate. I'm not trying to disrespect him, but I just love a lot of these other guys as well and think they also had great verses. But DMX always stood out in a good way. So whether you thought he had the best verse or like a second best verse,
just that voice sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I felt it was very similar to like when Busta Rhymes would do guest verses on like Tribe tracks, where it was like you just knew who that was and like I need to hear more of them.
And I was just about to say, as a matter of fact, bringing up people like Busta, that's what it was back in the 90s and the early 2000s. How you got your name, how you got your deal. Oh, you probably already had a deal, but how you got your buzz was features. That's a very much a lost art, a very lost cause. You don't really see that too much. Nowadays, rappers really just, they'll drop a single, it'll get a bunch of streams on SoundCloud or YouTube or whatever, and they'll just blow up after that. But back in the day, you had to make a name for yourself. You don't really have to do that now. You had to get on other people's tracks and murder shit, you know? Again, not to the level of these guys' success, but that's some of the stuff I had to do with Broken Complex. And even before, I had to, what got me signed to Broken Complex was featuring on a song with a rapper named Intuition. And they kind of, everybody heard me and they were like, DJ Hoppa, who's that? And he was like, this is a guy I've been talking to. So I kind of can relate to that. I did that Intuition song and had a verse on that, and he was significantly internet-wise bigger than me at the time. So it was a good look for me. So I know what it's like to feel that, but obviously not from this level. Like DMX was on these tracks, and that's what usually does it. And then I'm assuming this leads into the Def Jam days.
Absolutely. Before we get into Def Jam real quick, I just wanted to say, in terms of like how he just always stood out on the tracks, not only on the track, like you said, the guest spots, you just had to like, that's the way you sort of got noticed.
Yeah,
not only in the studio, but live performances. Like I was looking up when I cut together the little trailer for DMX that we'll probably post in promotion for this episode.
Yes.
I watched the old Showtime at the Apollo appearance. It was LL Cool J featuring
Redman.
Redman, Method Man, and DMX. And all of them were just
killing it
crazy, and the crowd was just going nuts. But when and DMX, who wasn't really that known at the time, but like when he got to his verse and he's rapping, like the crowd
lost their mind,
losing it. Like it's like Stone Cold or The Rock coming out. Like people are just like jumping out of their seats. Yeah,
it's what you call a proverbial pop in the wrestling world. No, I've seen that same clip, dude. And he just gets out there. First of all, I want to point out the fact, because I'm from New York, I want to point out the fact how blatantly New York all of these niggas look. They are all dressed so 90s New York, it's not even funny. I think DMX in the clip is like, no, it might not be that one, but there is a clip where he's performing 3-2-1 with those guys, and he's got the whole ski goggles that was big in the 90s in New York.
Yeah.
And I never wore those, but I remember growing up seeing motherfuckers wear that in the mid to late 90s. But when you look at this clip, they look so New York, it's not even funny, bro.
Like all of them wearing nothing but Timbs, like no
baggy ass shit, Timbs, big jean jackets, and
like
jerseys.
like the oversized North Face. Looks like it's like coming out from a blizzard.
Oh, it's great. I love it. Reminds me of back home.
Yeah. So as you were saying, this is around the time that he signed with Def Jam, and Def Jam, struck gold with him. This is around the time Def Jam was really killing it. I was listening to, I think it was Shade 45 the other day. I was driving, and they were playing an old Ludacris song, and the DJ was like cutting in and out. Like when he, how DJs will do that. They'll play the song, then sort of cut out and say something, and then like cut back to the song. And he was so Ludacris would be playing, then he'd be like, "Man, this is when Def Jam was killing it." Play Ludacris and be like, "They're whack as fuck now," and then like cut it back. And I don't know enough about Def Jam now to like label them as whack, but there's no.
Well, I will tell you this. I will tell you this to back. I beg to differ a little bit. Def Jam wasn't doing well at all when DMX came around. He is the reason Def Jam got saved. They had a resurgence because of DMX.
Right.
I was watching a Russell Simmons. And excuse me if I cut you off from making that point. I just didn't know if we were going to move forward. I wanted to bring that point up. I actually watched an interview with Russell Simmons talking about DMX, and he was saying how Irv Gotti was the one that brought DMX kind of to Leor. I think his name Leor Cohen is his name. His partner, Russell Simmons' partner. I think it's Leor Cohen. uh, they were hurting at the time, and to the point Russell Simmons was focusing on like films and other things because he was just like, this is a sinking ship. And musically, they just really, at that point, like 97, 98, 96, 97, they didn't really have any hard hitting artists. They had already, uh, I think at that time it was just like more R&B, and it just, their hip hop unit was just dying. And Irv Gotti was like, "Hey, I got this dude. I want you to hear him." And Irv Gotti kind of ended up A&Ring DMX, and then obviously picking up Ja Rule as well. But I believe he had an interest in DMX first, and Russell Simmons heard him, and he was just like, "This is incredible," and he brought it to Lior, and DMX is single handedly, and it's been uh, uh, documented. He was one of the hit persons, if not the person, to single handedly save Def Jam
Yep.
in
And
the late '90s.
how did he do that, you might ask? Well, starting in February 98, he released his debut major label single, Get At Me Dog, that went gold.
There it is.
And then, man, this was the start of something big.
Yep.
His debut album is Dark and Hell Is Hot, featured Rough Riders Anthem, which still gets a ton of play. And even the whitest of suburbanites, especially if you were like our age and like went to high school around this time, still know the words to at least the hook, at least know stop, drop. Everyone knows that became huge. So,
and then of course the remix where he throws in the little in betweens. My dog's gonna stop, your dog's gone, and then we gonna shut them down, open up shop. First we had them like, oh, now they like, oh, wow, baby. I loved that version, by the way, that remix version.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It grew to where he would only perform that version when he would he would do that every time he got to the hook, every time going forward, every time he performed that song.
So that was his the first album of his to go number one. It sold over sold over 5 million copies, number one on the Billboard 200. And then you've talked about this before. I think we talked about this during the Versus episode where he went against Snoop. But in December of the same year, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood,
another number one,
also number one.
Yeah,
the first and I believe only artist to have 2 number one albums
that
in
officially,
the same year.
Yeah, that officially put him in the Guinness Book of Records that year. It officially put him in the record books of being the first artist in music history, not just hip hop. We're talking about every genre of music, I believe, to have 2 number one albums the same, like months apart, literally. So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah, it was nuts.
It was insane.
At this point, he like obviously wasn't an overnight sensation, but to the untrained eye, he came out of nowhere, and his first at bat hit hit a grand slam, and then followed up more grand slams, and it was just batting 1,000, just killing.
Yeah,
a bona fide superstar right out the gate.
Yeah, I remember that year very well. I remember both those albums. I remember a friend of mine named Joe, who I've not seen in years, where we were teenage buddies, and he was the first to he had the CDs of both albums, because by the time I got to DMX, he had already released both. I had heard the Rough Riders Anthem on the radio, of course. It was I heard it back east in New York, and then when I came to LA, I was hearing it out here. It was all over the radio in all across the states. But I hadn't really knew who DMX was, and I'll never forget the end of like '98 when I was a kid. I was a teenager. My teenage buddy was like, "Man, I got these 2 DMX albums." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's the Rough Riders Anthem guy." And he was like, "Yeah." And I'll never forget, he played both those CDs back to back, and I was mesmerized. And I've said this before, and you've heard me say it. It literally changed my whole perspective of hip hop, because up until that point, hip hop was starting to get really commercial. It was great. I miss those times, but we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the fact that during this time, it was the shiny suit wearing, bubble, fisheye lens, all up in your face, R&B sounding.
Yeah, Puff Daddy R&B was like kind of the biggest hip hop star at the time.
He was him and he was him and Mace. This was off the heels of Biggie, who was probably before DMX, one of the last biggest stars, and then kind of Mace blew up, and then DMX right after that. But I'm talking about as far as the pretty boy rap, the swag rap, when before swag became a term. Diddy and Mace were that. A lot of rappers were that. A lot of rappers were doing R&B sounding tracks, and for DMX to cut through all that and get back to that gritty Tupac, because a lot of people compared him to like an East Coast Tupac because he just spoke the real. I personally think lyrically way better than Tupac. Don't shoot me, LA people. Don't say that around anybody from LA. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Tupac and Kobe can only say the nicest of things about either one of them.
You better. Rap wise, yeah, you better. Anything wise. But no, DMX cut through all that and he brought that hard, gritty street sound and changed my life.
Yeah, you bring it up. It's very interesting to like around the same time there was I can only imagine it was similar to like the grunge takeover for like white rock. You went from sort of glam rock and hair rock to also like to like grungy and being like just like a lot
emo,
more like down and like darker and grittier. So you like on a radio station you can hear like
Cobain,
like Puffy being like those were great songs, but in terms of hip hop that's based off sampling,
it was happy shit.
He wasn't sampling. He was literally just rapping over the instrumental and being like, okay, like we'll add a couple of new drums to it, but for the most part, we're rapping over the instrumental. And then DMX is like, you see his album, he's covered in blood. He's not only rapping about like robbing and stuff, but he's also
religious
rapping about
death.
He's rapping about like how he feels and like being like sometimes suicidal and sometimes it's being depressed and just super dark, but it resonated with not just like the hood, but I think it resonated with like white kids in the suburbs. Granted, a lot of times we just like we'll take anything that's like, oh, this is cool. This
sounds thing is hard,
But I gotta believe the reason why he did resonate and the reason why this one kid I remember in gym class in the locker room was like, oh, DMX might be the best rapper I've ever heard in my entire life. And granted, he could have been talking out of his ass. He might not know what he was talking about, but there's also a good chance that he was like, no, like this resonates with me. And I think that in terms of how he puts the song together, he's already an all-time great.
Yeah, no, I agree. He definitely he cut through all that shiny suit shit, and he had people in their feelings. He really did, and everybody. And that's why when I listened to him, I was just like, yo, this dude's the truth. It made me really start to like real hip hop, gritty shit. Because up to that point, I loved lyrical shit, but I didn't like anything hard. It was all radio stuff I liked. Now I'm liking, hard shit. I'm liking, what I'm saying? He's one of the people. They always usually attribute it and give it to the Ghetto Boys, but because they kind of had that suicidal, dark thoughts, the devil is after me type of vibe when they came out in the early late 80s, early 90s. But DMX is also kind of attributed to the fact of being one of the first like horrorcore rappers, where it was horrorcore, to some who don't know, is like it's basically the death metal, the goth rock version of rap. It's dark rap, So he's one of them. He's one of them. He's one of them.
So then after that, in 1999, he had the album. Then there was X, came out at the end of the year in December. That was the third.
That was my shit.
That was the third album to be number one. So now he's got 3 albums come out at number one, and those his first 3 are all number one. And it was propelled by "Party Up" in here, which
y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. You want to talk about
so many high school dances got like just an adrenaline boost when that song came on.
Yes, but even more so, and he says this in a lot of interviews. Like if you listen to his lyrics, they're hood as shit. He's talking some nigga shit in that entire song. He always says in interviews when I hear him talk about "Party Up," he's like, yeah, the beat was for the club, but my lyrics were gritty as shit, And if you listen to his lyrics, I mean, listen to what he says. Listen, your ass is about to be missing. You know who gonna find you? Some old man fishing. Like that's some hard ass street shit. You talk about killing a motherfucker and throwing him in the river, but yet the beat is down. So you're dancing to this shit. And here's the thing: people love DMX so much, they were so used to that when that song would come on, it was just like, yeah, that's DMX. We love DMX. He's rhyming some hard shit. But man, that Swiss Beats instrumental though. Like nobody, like you listen to DMX, but the beat was so hyped, you didn't care because most people will be like, damn, what he's saying doesn't really correlate with this club song, but damn, it's a club song. But you didn't care because you just knew that was DMX, and he never changed up for anybody. But I've never seen a song as hard as it is lyrically wise. The shit he's saying, his bars, resonate so much with white people because it was such a radio played song. To where the point, I remember when the song came out, I was going to performing arts camp, which is some of the whitest things a person of color can do.
It's also some of the whitest words you can put together in a
right,
sentence.
performing arts camp, right?
Yeah.
That is just white, because obviously I'm an entertainer, so I grew up doing acting classes and going to performing arts schools, and so I went to this camp called Camp Bravo. Shout out to them. I miss that place so much. But I remember.
Sorry, all I can think of. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. All I can think about Camp Bravo is you just like learning how to be on like Real Housewives and like, throw drinks in people's faces.
No, it was a performing arts camp, and I will admit I was literally one of a small handful of Black people that went there, and I mean by small I mean like 3. Rest was like white people, white kids, white teenagers. But man, whenever we would be at lunch or in the mess hall, because I knew that was such a big hit, and I knew white people loved that fucking song, I would just in the middle of lunch start going, y'all gonna make me lose my mind, and the entire mess hall would go, up in here, all these white kids, and I'm just like, bro, DMX has got one now. That's how I knew. That's how I knew. It's like Baby Got Back. Like it's such a hood song, but my God, white people love it.
We really do. So with that album,
and that was a great album too.
He was starting to get he wasn't starting to get, he was starting to get recognition, but the Academy, I guess, of recording artists, the Grammys started nominating him for awards. I don't think he ever won a Grammy.
He never won, yeah.
But he was starting to get nominated for all the rap categories. So like best rap solo performance, best rap album. But again, I always feel, not to get off on a tangent, Grammys have never been the end all be all, or they never had their finger on the pulse of hip hop necessarily.
No,
not to say that like
never...
not to say the winners of those categories haven't made great music, but there's been so many greats who haven't won Grammys, so you can't really take their word for it.
They haven't been very kind to people of color specifically when it comes to hip hop. They've just never have gotten it ever. And like you said, if you think about some of the winners, it's great, but some of it is laughable. I will admit, and it's because the white, quote unquote, white academy, the old heads that run it, they're not familiar with the culture that is hip hop. So all they do is go by what's hot on the radio, who's safer, whose skin is fairer. Listen, I love Eminem to death, but Eminem has won damn near every Grammy possible when it came into the hip hop category. Same thing. I mean, Will Smith, I love Will Smith, but was he doing artistic stuff? It was great that he won it. I was happy to see the hip hop category get nominated, but it's like you're thinking that. And then you got people like MC Hammer. I think MC Hammer won a Grammy for Can't Touch This, or that Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him album. And then, that atrocity, listen, great rapper. I love his album was really good. But for Macklemore to win over Kendrick that year, that was an abomination. No. I'm sorry.
This is the biggest sham of a ceremony since Macklemore won Best Rap Album of the Year.
But he knew he fucked up because afterwards he literally texted Kendrick, was like, "Man, you should have won. You should have won that. You got robbed."
Well, then he should have pulled a Ving Rhames at the Golden Globes and been like, "You know what, Jack Lemmon, this actually goes to you."
He could have, and granted, it wouldn't have been in the record books, but just that gesture would have been nice. So it's like I can imagine Kendrick looked at that text and was like, "Nigga, take your ass to sleep. Fuck off you don't get the fuck off my phone with that duck." Like, Kendrick later said that he appreciated it, but in that moment of anger, he probably had some, maybe some liquor in the system. I don't know. I think he's pretty straight edge, actually, Kendrick. But I know me. I looked at it like, take your ass to sleep, Macklemore.
It's like when you're rubbing this in my face.
Morning. Yeah.
Can you imagine if you like lost to someone who was not as good as you, and then the call was, "Man, it should have been you," being like, "Man, I know it shouldn't have been you."
I'm just saying. So, but no, it just correlates back to what we were saying. It's just they've never gotten it, and DMX unfortunately was a casualty of that. Nas just finally won.
Yeah.
I mean, are you kidding? This man's been around doing artistic, lyrical, beautiful fucking music, beautiful music,
And
not just hip
Illmatic
hop.
might be the best rap album ever made.
Come on, bro. That and Stillmatic. I mean, Godson. I mean, I can go on and on his catalog. And after 25 years, you just now give it to him? Come on. You're right. The Academy they've never gotten it.
October 23rd, 2001, which is my 19th birthday.
Who cares?
He completed and released The Great Depression.
Great Depression.
Which was the fourth album.
Number one.
So he's now 4 for 4. And this had hit songs, Who We Be, We Right Here.
They don't know. Da-da, da-da,
but at this time, despite the fact that it was triple platinum, the commercial success and the critical success was starting to wane. Like it was still getting commercial and critical success, but it wasn't quite like the other ones. It was almost like when like Michael Jackson's with Thriller and then Bad and then Dangerous. Like they're all critically acclaimed, but as you go on, you're like,
they don't hit.
It's not quite
the
this.
same way.
Which sometimes which could be like a fair assessment and critique, where obviously you're like, oh, this is like their best work. But I also feel that critics and then sometimes we as the fans are always expecting that same thing.
Yeah.
Like for like the first thing, like because when we first heard DMX, there was no expectation. We just were blown away. So then by the fourth time he comes out, we're like, this is great. This is like, yeah, it's a DMX song. So that's not necessarily fair to him.
No, it went number one more so for the fact that people just love the shit out of DMX. That was just really it. They went out and bought the album, but when they heard the album, they were like,
They still liked it. They just were like, oh, it's just
were like,
not as good as the other ones.
This isn't hitting like the other ones.
And the same thing happened with his fifth album, Grand Champ. It came out a couple years later, which also went number one. So now he's 5 for 5. 5 number one albums. And again,
only artist in history to do that. I think he's still.
And he's actually, I never knew this, with his 6th album in 2006, Year of the Dog Again, that went number 2. And apparently it only missed number 1 by a few hundred copies. So
wow.
If
that would have been 6 Pete.
That would have been 6. I never knew he was that close to 6 in a row.
Yeah. That ring, that 6 ring. That's that ring, baby.
This is around the time that DMX is starting to, I mean, he's having legal troubles throughout
losing his momentum. Yeah.
But he's also just, it's tough to maintain. The fact that he's had that many hit albums in a row is incredible. But in music, in art, in anything, it is hard to maintain a consistent level of relevance. And he was still relevant at the time. He's still making music, he's still in movies, but this was around the time that you started sort of seeing his popularity, not like nosedive, but it's just like not
decline
quite the same.
And it's funny because during this time, his movies were actually hitting, like, mid 2000s, his movies were hitting, and it was kind of more so that was what was keeping him afloat. Like, the albums, like you said, it was a slight decline. They loved DMX, we loved him, but his movies at this point, from what I remember, and I guess you kind of do your research, his movies were hitting better than his music at this point,
Yeah.
But that's not what you love DMX for. You want the albums.
So then eventually he wasn't with Def Jam anymore, and he signed sort of back to Columbia, not on Rough House, but actually on Columbia's imprint. And that's actually where Year of the Dog was released. Yeah. And then they started releasing compilation albums. And
did he have the greatest hits? Did he have a greatest hits album?
Yeah, he had The Definition of X, Pick of the Litter, came out in 2008. And then he had another compilation, Best of DMX, in 2011, which also I think had Where's the Hood At and X Gonna Give It To You. Because I know X Gonna Give It To You was, I think, a bonus on one of his other albums, because that was on
the soundtrack.
To the Grave soundtrack.
Yeah, it was on the soundtrack, which he wanted that to be the single for his album. Quick story, Joe Silver, I believe, was the producer on that. And, he knew DMX was killing it on the charts at this point. And I believe this was one of DMX's first movies. So DMX was still charting very, very well. I think he was probably on his 3rd, 4th album, but he was on his 3rd album, I think, or about to do his 3rd. No, he was. I think he was about to do his fourth album. I think he was about to do the Great Depression, and I believe he wanted. And then there was X Gonna Give It To You. He wanted that to be the first official single, but Joe Silver heard it because he would record on the set of Cradle to the Grave. He would record on the lot. He had a little mobile studio, so he would play songs for Joel Silver for the soundtrack. And I guess he accidentally slipped up and played, X Gonna Give It To You, and Joel Silver was like, that one. And X was like, can I use that for my album? And I think Joel Silver like paid him an exponentially big amount of money for it, and told him, look, if you let us have this for the soundtrack, because this just fits so well with the script. He said, I think he gave him creative control over the soundtrack. And at that point, X was like, all right, dog, fuck it. Give me creative control of the soundtrack. I'll let you have it. Yeah, because DMX is hood about everything. I can imagine dealing with white people, doing business. He was always like that. There was never a moment. He probably would tell Joel Silver, all right, fuck it, nigga. You can have it. Bitch ass nigga. I know you want it. Bitch ass nigga, fine, take it. I want creative control over the soundtrack. So funny story, fun fact about that.
So then his last studio album to be released while he was alive was Undisputed. That came out in 2011, and you got mixed reviews from critics. I think it was number 19 on Billboard, and then it was number 2 on like the R&B and hip hop albums, how it debuted. So yeah, at this point, music had changed. Like I know like guys like you and me kind of like hearing from guys like DMX, but this is around the time like when Drake was blowing up. This is around the time that Kendrick was starting to like get a buzz, Big Sean, Kanye,
J. Cole.
So this isn't, DMX wasn't
Wiz Khalifa.
Like the
commercial.
Music
it was very commercial.
The music that was popular at this point kind of went back. Like
very
DMX
commercial.
shifted from popular commercial music to like gritty, and then people were like, all right, had enough gritty, let's go back to that like feel good, like stuff.
Time to dance.
And I think I feel I've heard stories about DMX being a little envious of rappers who sometimes would be doing better than him.
He hated Drake.
I don't like anything about Drake. Mm-hmm. I don't like his voice. I don't like what he talks about. I be trying to tell his face. I don't like the way he walks, like nothing. I don't like his haircut.
I don't know if he died feeling that way, but around that time, if we're talking
I think
about
I heard they kind of cleared it up a little,
reconciled.
because I feel like there was a DMX sample he needed or something, and
had to pander to the dog.
Well, I think Drake's always probably like DMX. Probably like, man, why does he hate me? And then
bad,
he's like, can I pay you some money for the sample? And he's like, okay, yeah, we're cool.
All right, fuck it.
Yeah.
Fuck it, bitch ass nigga, you can have it.
So yeah, and then he wasn't really doing music for a while. Again, he was kind of in and out of jail. He found God again and was like really into like preaching and letting people know, but he always had like relapses with his addictions. The verses, I think, really gave him a renewed
resurgence.
Resurgence, where everyone was just like, man, like we need to hear DMX.
We want to hear
again.
DMX.
And Swiss Beats recently said like, like after that, like we stayed in LA. He was so rejuvenated. All the feedback that he got from everyone being like, man, all these songs are great. You're great. That they basically knocked out an album, which is supposed to be coming out this month, called Exodus, which I think is also the name of his son.
I believe so, yeah.
But it's sadly that with his passing, there's going to be renewed interest in this album. I'm sure it'll do well if it's promoted correctly and people know that it's out there.
Yeah.
But
I saw the announcements for that online. Swiss Beats, it was like a surprise thing he posted, and people were like, because they've been secretly before X passed away, they had been kind of secretly. There have been talks about it. There was rumors. Nobody knew. They would always ask DMX over the past like 10 years. They would ask DMX like, what's going on with the music, and he would always give kind of a for sure but dismissive answer. And I think it's because he just wanted to kind of, he didn't want to be influenced by the sound that is now. So I think he kind of wanted to just keep that under wraps. So him and Swiss Beats were always in the studio. Like you said, they were in LA. They stayed in LA. It's funny. During this time, sadly, he lost. Everybody knows at this point. I mean, he lost his life pretty much to addiction. Um, but the funny thing about it is, prior to that, leading up for years, X was getting himself clean. There were times where X would be clean. The past 10, 15 years, he was cleaning himself up, and he would just relapse. He'd clean himself up, and then he would just relapse. And I'll never forget, because I follow him on the Instagram, on the gram, and this was probably about a year ago, maybe right before COVID got bad. I was on Instagram just scrolling on the news feed, and I came across a post from his page, and it was from his team, his representatives, and they basically said that DMX was back in rehab. And I just remember seeing that and just being so disappointed, but also I just felt so defeated because I was just like, I think he had just did I really honestly think it was right before or right after he did the verses. It might have been right before. Don't quote me. But I just remember knowing he was having this resurgence, and I'm just like, fuck, X, bro, you're back in rehab. Like I just remember saying to myself, damn, you can't get it together, man. And I felt bad for him, of course, but I was also, I don't know this man. I never knew him. Obviously, I never met DMX. But from a personal standpoint, you get to know these people through their artistry, and you feel like a family member. You know what I'm saying? There are times you feel like a family member, and I felt like a kind of disappointed, not father, he's older than me, but I felt like a disappointed brother or a disappointed cousin. Like, man, come on, this is your chance to get your shit together. And that's the power of addiction.
Yeah.
It is a disease. But if you're not trying to do anything about it, you're allowing that disease to take over. And DMX he was allowing it.
And it's just weird, like, because I'm the same way. Like when I hear someone's like in rehab, you're like, oh, like no, especially someone like DMX who's been in and out for a while, where you do sort of feel like not again. But like to the people who are like closer to him, that's like a good thing. It's like, all right, like obviously he's been like doing not great, but hopefully this is a step in the right direction. Like this is him at least trying to get better.
And unfortunately, it didn't, because you're absolutely right. Ultimately, after the disappointment, I was just like, okay, well, at least he's getting himself clean.
Mm-hmm.
And he must have got out and went right back to those demons.
Yeah.
So
talking about DMX, like we could probably go on for 10 hours talking about DMX, just dissecting every song, every movie, every cameo, every guest appearance he's ever done. But like we have a limited time here. But we can try and boil it down to his overall legacy and how it's impacted us. So as you have stated many times, you're an actor, a rapper, among other things. How has DMX impacted your life?
I can only revert back to what I said earlier. The first, I will briefly go back to, again, the first time I remember being in junior high. I think actually about to go into high school, and I remember riding the bus, and sometimes the bus drivers would play the radio, and I would just remember Rough Riders Anthem was just all over the radio in the late 90s. And I remember being in school and hearing it on the bus. I would get in my mom's car, I would hear it in the car, and to me it was like, it was gritty, but it didn't resonate with me until I heard the albums. To me it was just like, this is another hit song by an up and coming rapper. He sounds dope. The beat, to me it was always about the beat. I knew lyrics, but I didn't know lyrics the way I grew to know them, which ultimately made me a lyricist. But as a kid, I didn't have that lyrical prowess. I didn't have that knowledge. So to me, it was always the beat, some lyrics, the tone, but it was usually the beat. And that Swiss Beats beat, that dun 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 dun. You hear those? When you hear those first chords, it's like the first chords. I was telling this to a friend the other day. It's like when you hear the first chords of "I Got Five on It." When you hear those little chimey sounds in the beginning, that do 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 do, you immediately like, oh shit, this is I Got Five on It, and that's what the first chords of Rough Riders Anthem had. Once you heard that first little few chords that Swiss Beats did, you're just like, it's about to get it on, let's get it on. And but again, I didn't appreciate it. I love the song, and then when I heard those two albums, man, I went over to my buddy's house and back to back, we literally for hours listened on his radio, his little boom box. Some boom boxes were still a thing. He put the CD on, and shit, it might have been a cassette tape. I don't know. I mean, CDs were very much a thing at this point, but it might have been tape that I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember he put the album on. He put on "Dark as Hell Is Hot," and I remember listening to it. And I was just like, "Yo, this dude is the truth. This is more than just some radio hip hop shit. This is a real man who's got pain, and he's bringing theatrics to this whole thing." For example, the song "Damien." He did about three parts of those. When he stopped doing them, I was so disappointed because I wanted every album to have a Damien song. Like he has one on "Dark as Hell Is Hot." He has one on "Flesh of My Flesh." He doesn't have one on "Then There Was X," which really pissed me off because that's one of my favorite DMX. I was so mad because I remember looking at the back of the CD track list and I'm like, I think I just wanted to skip right to Damien, which would have been Damien 3, and I didn't see it, and I was just like, I know this motherfucker did not put a Damien song on his album. I was so upset about that, but it was still a great album. And then he brought it back for the Great Depression, which made me very happy. And it was Damien 3. But again, right after that, when he did Grand Champ, there was no Damien track. It's stuff like that that just set at DMX aside, you know. And for those who don't know the Damien songs, all I'm going to say is Google them. Go to YouTube, type in DMX Damien. You'll hear all 3 parts. It's an incredible records. It just shows DMX's depth, but it also shows where his mind was spiritually and where his mind was when it came to how gritty and street and how he really wanted you to know the demons he had in his head. Because that's what the song's literally about, a demon in his head. So just stuff like that. And then just growing up with him. I mean, there was a point in time, I will say, where I kind of not forgot about DMX, but I got so saturated with all the new music that was coming out in the mid 2000s. And then, you know, the 2010s, I was getting so saturated with that I kind of wasn't thinking about DMX. And when I would think about DMX, it was like, man, I can't wait to hear a DMX song. But I really don't care to not, you know, it really isn't a priority to me. As opposed to late 90s, early 2000s, it was a priority for me. I had to have every DMX album. I had to hear every track, you know, everything. So there was a point in time where I kind of fell victim to what society was doing, which was slowly starting to not like DMX as the gritty artist he was. I got saturated with the commercial stuff. But I never forgot about the man. I never, at no point was like, whenever he would come, pop his head out in between the multiple court cases and the multiple, you know, charges he would get, whenever he would wean through those cracks, I would always be like, go DMX, go. And it's sad the way he went out. But I will say what he meant to me was he's a hip hop titan, was a hip hop titan, is a hip hop titan. He's in my top 5, and that was before he passed away. He's a great, he's very spiritual. He meant a lot to hip hop, and he meant a lot to me through hip hop and through even getting to know him kind of as a person. Because again, DMX really did not mince words. He was very open during interviews. He was very open about things, not just the addiction, about his life. He said a lot. So you got to know the person, and I just think he's gone way too soon, and he will be missed. I'm at the point now, because he meant so much to me, it's hard to even listen to his music. You know, I think the other night I had my my playlist on my music playlist on shuffle, and you know, it's just playing different songs. And "How's It Going Down" by DMX came on, and I was just like, oh. I just, all the breath out of me just left, and he had just died. So I couldn't listen to it. I had to skip it. I was just like, it's too soon for that. And I never had a problem listening to a DMX song ever, but it's hard now, you know. So that's how much he meant to me, really. And he will be missed. Real quick, favorite DMX movie, and you can do the same thing when it gets to your portion. My favorite DMX movie, and I know he isn't known for his acting skills. Like, he did a good job. He got through the films. He knew his lines. You know, he's one of the better rapper / actors.
He also had like a presence about him. Like, it was someone
and
that...
he looked good on camera. Yeah, he had a good look on camera. You know, I know people are like, well, famous DMX, you know, he doesn't have a Robert De Niro catalog. I understand that, but still, I enjoyed watching some of his movies. My favorite by him, though, is a movie called Never Die Alone. And if you haven't seen it, Vince, check it out. Google it, find it. I don't know.
I was at the premiere.
Just search the internet for
Alone.
Oh wow. Oh, so you already okay. Wow.
Well, I'll explain later.
Tell that story sometime.
I wasn't, but I'll explain later.
Okay. Okay, nice. Okay, great. Okay, well there you go. I ain't schooling you with nothing. Great
No, I haven't
film.
seen it.
I'm
So
sorry.
I mean, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh well, watch the movie. Good film. He does a really good job. This is probably some of the best acting I've seen DMX actually do. He plays a character called King David, and that's all I'm gonna say. He's a piece of shit. This character is an absolute piece of shit. So he plays it well because DMX is already a fucking hard street nigga. He don't give a fuck anyway. So Never Die Alone. David Arquette's in it. Michael Ealy. A couple other people, but it's Clifton Powell. It's a good film. Check it out. That's one of my favorite by him. And I have to say, favorite DMX song. There's too many. So I'll say one of my favorite DMX songs, not the favorite one, but one of them. I have to give it to I really like Who We Be. Who We Be. And it's a great message too, because he's talking about, people of color struggle and how we're perceived in society. So it's got a good message. It's a great song. I'll have to say probably that one. I really liked, but then X Gonna Give It To You is a fucking banger too. I love that as well. So I don't know. I'll have to go with, because there's a great album cut on it's the intro song to the And Then There Was X. It's a song called I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it goes, one more road to cross.
Oh yeah.
One more breath to, gotta live my life like this. One more move to make. Great song. And it's not even a single. Great song, album opener. I love that song. But I'll have to give it to Who We Be. That's my favorite. So favorite movie, Never Die Alone. Favorite song, Who We Be. And Vince, if you'd like to give your take on what Mr. Darkman X, aka Earl Simmons, or Earl Simmons, aka Darkman X, meant to you personally.
Well, he meant a lot. Being a fellow Marylander who was into the arts, I feel like was very big to another Maryland person. Seeing a Maryland person achieve so much. If he's from Maryland Yonkers, and he can do this, then I'm from Maryland. And it just inspires me. Whenever I see a Maryland person doing that, as a Maryland person,
you mean as a Yonkers person?
Oh, hold on. I'm gonna I feel like I need to just mute you for a second while I go on what I'm saying about, what was I saying? Oh, right. The Marylander, very famous Marylander being famous and inspiring this Marylander.
I forgot.
Oh shit! I didn't mean to. I got to ask him mute again. There we go.
I love that you have control over that now. Anyway, continue.
I think I've always had it. I'm abusing it now. DMX. If I had to boil it down to one thing, and it's probably not fair, but it's nostalgia. He makes music. He made music that transports me back to like some really good formative adult years, like my young adult years. So like high school, college is like basically like when I went from like a boy to a man, is like that. He's part of that soundtrack. I'll tell it quickly, and I apologize if I told the story before. My Never Die Alone premiere story. I was not at the premiere, but I was visiting my friend in New York at the time. Me and a bunch of other friends. She just graduated from college, and then we decided to visit her. And then we all were going out for the night. And across the street from our apartment, was a movie theater, and it wasn't a huge movie theater, but it was like they're having the premiere of Never Die Alone, and they had like the little red carpet and everything. And we're like, oh, I wonder what's going on over there. And we saw the post for Never Die Alone, and we're like, oh man, I wonder if we'll see like
DMX himself.
But for some reason, we didn't think DMX would be there, so we're like, I wonder if we'll see David Arquette. And then all of a sudden we saw DMX. Like he was like front and center, and we're like, holy shit, it's DMX. And
that's crazy. You got to see him in person.
And at that point, I feel like just like the media and also just like his singles, he was always portrayed as like a gruff, kind of scary individual. So seeing him just like being like, he looked so happy. He looked like a little kid. He was like joking with the reporters. He was like smiling, laughing, and it was like, oh my God, he looks like really excited to be here. So that was when I said like I was at the premiere. I was not.
Gotcha.
But it was the first time I got to see him
in person,
not have that gruff persona, like where he was like, oh, like he's a real person who's capable.
They said he's a big teddy bear.
Exactly.
They said he's a big teddy bear.
exactly. So if I had to pick, I guess, favorite movie, he's not the star of this movie. I'm just gonna bring this up because I feel it needs attention. I love his cameo in Top 5, the Chris Rock movie.
Oh, where he's singing in the jail cell. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so funny. And I feel that it was also, it was funny, but it was also, I felt like he got a little window into who he really was, where he's like, man, I'm just like you. Like, I want to step away from this. Like, I want to sing. Like, it was played for a joke, but I don't know if he really wanted to sing, but it's like
Chris Rock definitely wanted him to sing.
It was a universal kind of thing, like where you get pigeonholed into one thing. You're like, I can do more. Like you see me as this one person, but I'm more complex, and I can do more than this. And so I thought the juxtaposition between him saying that and being kind of a serious scene, and then him actually singing off key, and everyone's like, man, shut the fuck up. And he's like, yeah, I'm trying to sing here. Thought was so funny, and I feel like that might be his most natural performance that I've seen. But again, I haven't seen Never Die Alone, but I felt like that cameo deserved some attention. In terms of favorite songs, obviously I love the big songs, but I just want to draw attention to, he was really good on guest appearances. So he was on the We Be Clubbin' remix, but I
remember that. Wow. I forgot about that.
But the one I really enjoyed was like the third remix of it. It was the Eye of the Tiger remix that had the band. I heard that in high school during volleyball practice. My friend,
I remember. I forgot about that.
And I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I heard it, and I was like, "This." I was like, "Man, if I was a wrestler, this would be my wrestling entrance. This is a great song. It gets me so amped up." Would you say "Go to Sleep" was an Eminem song or a DMX song, or was it an Obi song?
Actually, that was actually an Obi Trice song.
It's an Obi Trice song. Okay.
I believe it was a mixtape because it wasn't on anybody's album. So I think it was a mix. It was on somebody's mixtape, and I think it was an Obi Trice mixtape. And I think this is actually I think before Obi did his first debut album. I think this was part of promotion for Obi Trice.
So yeah, that song opened up "Cradle to the Grave."
Go to sleep, bitch. Die, motherfucker, die.
And I was so into that 50 Cent, G Unit, Eminem, Interscope, Shady beef with Murder Inc.
Yeah.
So then when they got DMX in there, because the DMX had been kind of beefing with Ja Rule for a while. And Ja has said some things I thought were like not unforgivable, but I was like, man, like that's fucked up, like what you're saying about DMX. So I was already taking DMX's side on that. So when DMX was like teaming with them, I was like, yeah, it was like the knockout blow. And that was a lot of fun. And then this was also his song. He wasn't a guest on this. He did What These Bitches Want, or What You Really Want, with his
favorite of mine.
With his Baltimore brethren, with his Maryland Amigo, Cisco. They were Def Jam brothers, but Baltimore brothers. Bonded by B More.
So you say.
Well, I mean, you can see the video. Like they worked on it together, and there was clearly chemistry there. So
yeah, Yonkers and Baltimore chemistry. Yeah,
no, sure. Baltimore and Baltimore. Yeah, I mean, but there was so many. Yeah, there's so much. I just wanted to touch on some of the stuff that like doesn't get mentioned as much.
No, I agree. I actually would be remiss not to bring that up as well. That is a great song. What These Bitches Want, an amazing song, well put together. The beat is incredible.
There's the iconic, I can't remember all the girls' names or even like one of them in the right order, but like the fact that like the whole verse where he just lists all the girls. Oh.
Yeah, that became an internet challenge too.
Yeah.
They did it for the way he did it, where it's a guy's naming off all the girls they've been with, but they actually did it as a tribute to all of the people of color that were killed by the police unjustly. They did a DMX challenge, which I thought was really cool. Sad to watch because you're realizing there was enough names that have been killed unjustly by the police to even fill that verse. So it's unnerving. It's unnerving to watch that because you're like,
I think I read somewhere probably on Black Twitter jokingly that like, oh, in order for a white person to get an invite to the cookout, they need to recite that entire verse like verbatim.
Yeah, well, yeah, good luck with that. But yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, I think you have to do more. Like you can't just memorize that. That's like the tail. You have to do everything else and then this is like your final test.
Yeah, this is that's just the start, my friend. There's
Yeah.
a lot more white people need to do. But anyway, aside from that, yeah, that is a great song. There was a point I wanted to make real quick, uh, which is sad, and we actually talked about this when the beginning of the "I Miss You" video with Aaliyah, who, of course, sadly has been dead for she's been gone for 20 years now. Um, DMX is in the beginning of that video doing a tribute to her. You know, they it's him and a bunch of Aaliyah fans and friends and family behind him, and probably Rough Rider members as well. And it's tough to watch that now. It is very tough to watch that, knowing that 20 years later he's now gone.
Yeah, and he
there's
got
probably
choked up.
somebody.
He was
Yeah,
visibly
he was sad
upset.
during that shoot. Yeah, he was visibly. Him and Aaliyah were real close, from what I understand. They were best of homies, and they did that movie together. They did Romeo Must Die,
Yeah.
which DMX was in. They did a couple songs together too. I definitely love the song with him and her. Come Back in One Piece, great song.
Mm-hmm.
Great beat too. I don't know if you remember that. That was actually on the Romeo Must Die soundtrack. So it's sad to watch that, because it's just like, wow, here he was paying a tribute to her, and now he's gone. You know, it's rough. And I know you said you were thinking about putting that part of the promotional, the montage, the video montage we're doing to promote this episode, and I was just like, I'm glad you didn't, because
Yeah.
that would probably bring some tears to some people's eyes, and we want people to be jovial and
like in all
celebrate his
honesty,
life, not mourn it.
Yeah, we want to celebrate him.
To tail this off, there's only one X, man. There's only one X. There will only be one X. X is like very much like a Michael Jackson. There will be no two alike, like a snowflake. You will never see anybody come around again like DMX, musically or personally or personality wise. I just don't think. I think he's one of a kind. And he's definitely going in the annals of time of history, man. There's no point in history, I feel, going forward, even after me and you are gone, that DMX will not be talked about. I don't see it happening. And I don't care how another artist gets or tries to replicate him. Excuse me. There'll never be a DMX. So rest in peace to him. He will be missed sorely by everybody, by me and you, by Popcorn and Booze here at Popcorn and Booze. We will miss Earl Simmons, aka DMX. Throw your X's up. With that being said, you guys, yes, that does conclude Popcorn and Booze, episode 1, season 3. And you guys already know who I am. You know who I be. But before we do that, we do want to mention one more time. Get ready for the premiere, next episode, episode 2, of Val Talk, starring our new segment, Girl Talk segment, correspondent, Valerie Redmond. Be ready for her. She's going to be bring some good additions to the show, I think, and get ready for her. Episode 2, you guys. Val Talk coming to you. All right. With that being said, I am. You know who I am. I am the no more water. It's empty. No water drinking. Already used chapstick using. The man, the myth. I am, the high flying, not a kiss stealer, because again, that's rapey. Limousine riding, jet flying, wheeling and dealing, as said by Rickolas Flair. And I can say that, Vince, because it's my show, and if I want to call him Rickolas, his name is Rickolas. And the jabroni beating, pie eating, if you smell what the Rock is cooking, fan of the Matt Star, the actor, the comedian, the legend. I'm doing the RVD, the whole effing show. I go by the name of Laren Maxstar Moore.
And I am Marilyn's second favorite son after Earl DMX Simmons. I am Lightman V, LMV. V. V's gonna give it to you consensually if it's okay. I'm Vince Eustace.
because we're all about kids sitting here on top of how important.
Maybe how do I do? No, maybe I do the V. No, this is a better way.
V, that's a better V. Yeah, there you go.
This is awkward. This is tougher. V.
You look like Captain America or some weird ass shit. I can't even do it.
Yeah. L M V. What you really want? There we go.
And kids, you have reached the season opener. We've made it season 3, episode 1 of Popcorn
and Boo.
And with that being said, folks, back to business. Bye-bye. Gotta go. See you later. Rest in peace. DMX.